My uncle has lived in Russia for more than 2 decades. From time to time, I used to travel there for holidays since early childhood. He lived in a rural area not too far from the city of Moscow. He had a small farm, cows, pigs, chickens, and such. I was 19 when I went to visit my uncle for the summer break. Since I was old enough to help him around the place and I had a driver's license. Because of this, my uncle asked me to get into a truck and take hay back to the farm, from the plot of land that he used to grow and get ready hay for the winter. He had to keep feeding 2 cows, and without hay, it would be almost impossible to keep cattle during the winter. I would have to make a few trips to drive all these stacks of hay from the plot to the home. But as a motivation, my uncle promised to let me borrow his car for the night to hang out with friends. We made a deal, and the first trip came and went without any incidents. It wasn't a big distance between the plot and the farm, maybe 25 kilometers at the most. But loading and unloading the truck took a long time by myself, so the second time I took the trip, it was already well past sunset. I was driving a truck back to the farm full of another load of hay, when suddenly on the road, a man appeared out of nowhere. He was smiling and holding up a 1,000 ruble bill in hopes of catching a ride. You ever get a feeling when something is out of place but you can't quite put your finger on it? Well, I had that weird feeling and decided to play it safe and fair. I didn't stop, and I continued my journey back to the farm for my uncle. I felt a bit guilty for leaving that man there, but in my defense, I was a 19-year-old girl driving a car that wasn't even mine, and loaded with tons of hay, which does cost quite a bit of money. I didn't want to risk not only getting hijacked but also maybe something worse. With such a thought, I calmed my conscience, and in a few minutes I forgot the encounter entirely. Not much after, I heard a weird noise coming from the backside of the truck. Something was hitting against the truck bed door, and I got scared that I might have thrown all the hay without knowing it. I stopped the car and I got out, looked back and checked the door, the latches, crawled under, but everything seemed fine to me. I shrugged and returned back to the cabin. I was about to open the door and get inside when I saw that old man sitting in the cabin of the truck, smiling at me and holding out the bill of 1,000 ruble. I didn't even hear how he had opened and closed the doors. I almost fell back from sheer shock. How? When? Why? I had thousands of questions lining up in my head. First, how this dude got in here, how he caught up, why was he sitting in my uncle's effing truck? I yelled at him to get out of the truck, but the old man was just sitting there smiling and holding out that dang bill. I yelled at him, threatened, but there was nothing. And standing there outside of my truck, holding the doorknob of the driver's side, I realized that I was scared to death of that man. Luckily for me, I saw the lights of another truck coming my way. I leaned out all the way, holding myself with the doorknob, and I started waving my hand. While the truck was getting closer, I was thinking for myself that I would give this creepy old fart a ride for his life with that bill far up his guts. The truck was almost here, and I decided to look into the cabin of my truck, and I saw that he had now scooted over to the driver's seat, face stuck to the window, and staring at me. I fell off and I landed on my butt from fright. And then I heard the doors of my truck open from the passenger side, and I scrambled up to my feet. The old man walked over. He was still smiling and holding out the bill. But only then I noticed what he held in another hand. A small kitchen hatchet. This wasn't fun and games anymore. I backed away, and just in time, the truck arrived and stopped right beside me. And the men that stopped before me turned and dashed into the forest, away from the road. The driver of the other truck looked over and asked what was wrong. I just yelled, There's a man with a 1,000 ruble bill and a kitchen hatchet in the woods. The dude didn't even get out. He locked his doors and ordered me to do the same. Jumping back into my truck, I locked the doors and waited for a while with the another driver. What we were waiting for, I don't know. Maybe to see him again. Wait and see if he would turn up. And 10 minutes went and the driver of the truck decided it was safe enough now to get out of the cars. We got out, shook hands and lit cigarettes. I told him what happened from the beginning, while I smoked like crazy. The driver, Ilya, I later found out, really was just nodding along and looking around, seemingly looking for some movement from the side of the forest. Butting cigarettes, he advised me to never stop the car no matter what, especially if going at night. He was a long-haul driver and seemingly speaking from experience, so I agreed and bid him goodbye. We got into our own separate trucks and we parted ways. When I got to the farm, I informed my aunt about what had happened, and as expected, she started freaking out. She called my uncle immediately and explained everything, and soon enough, the neighbor boy that was helping all day unloading the truck here in the farm took the keys and drove back to my uncle himself. And to be honest, I was happy that he had relieved me of that duty. I was thinking all night about how that guy caught up with me. I wasn't speeding, but I wasn't crawling either. My only guess was that he ran after my truck and somehow jumped to the back door. He held up for a while and then started to make noises, so I would stop to get out and investigate, which is how it exactly happened. Why was he doing all of this? I can only guess. I never met that man ever since, and to this day, I have no idea what all of it was about, or what would have happened if there wasn't some random driver in the right place at the right time. Thankfully, I didn't have a chance to find out. Thank you, Ilya, for amazing timing. I know this is really long, but there's also not really any way of shortening the story. I'm not even sure how to start this story off, but here's a little background. I've had my Instagram for about 5 years. I post pretty simple photos. One's of me, and I'm a photographer and an artist, so a good amount of the pictures that I take as well. I don't have a large following on Instagram, so considering this started about 4 years ago, I probably had about 2,000 followers, and most of them were friends, family, or friends of friends. One day, I posted a screenshot on my private Instagram of someone random viewing my story. I'm not sure what the context was, but it doesn't really matter. Soon after, a friend of mine pointed out that one of the Instagram accounts that were viewing my story had a profile picture that was a photo of my friend, so I immediately went to their account. When I went to their account, I noticed that all of their pictures were one screenshotted from my account, and I immediately started freaking out. They went by a kind of Russianized version of my name, and had around 1,000 followers. I was totally baffled. This account didn't last that long, and was receiving probably more activity than my own account was. I was confused, but I also knew that it was what happened when you had a public Instagram, and some catfish isn't going to ruin my life, so I reported the account and I moved on. Soon after, I started getting messages from random Instagram accounts that all seemed to be coming from Russia. They would send me messages and screenshots of different accounts that also all seemed to be Russian, of people pretending to be me. I started to panic more, as I knew that not only was it not just one person, but that many people knew about it, and I genuinely thought that I was a completely different person than I was. I kept reporting these accounts and they would mysteriously delete, and then show up under new names. But at this point, my Instagram account was blocked by pretty much all of the catfish accounts. I logged into a friend's Instagram and noticed tagged photos of this catfish of me. Drawings, many drawings, people drawing me, who they totally thought was some random Russian girl. There was a Twitter account, a YouTube account, a VK, a Russian-based social media account, a Facebook account, all under this fake name and using photos of me. I finally got a lot of the accounts deleted and I felt relieved. Then probably about 6 months later, I got another message on Instagram from some other random Russian account, sending me to yet another fake profile pretending to be me. The first thing that stuck out to me was the fact that they had a photo of my mom and I from when I was a baby. A photo that was only available on my mom's Facebook, which isn't public. I panicked, reported the account, and told all my friends to do the same. And then I got curious, and I started wondering who these people were that were finding and sending these accounts. I went deep back into my Instagram DMs and found that those accounts were now also catfishes of me. I don't know what part of me thought that it would be a good idea to message them, but I did. I ended up having a very odd conversation with them, where they told me that they used the photos of me because I looked like them, and that they were self-conscious. They even said that they would show their family photos of me and pretend that it's them. One day, I tried to log into my Instagram, and it said that someone in Russia had made numerous attempts to change my password. Freaking insane. Basically, I'll save the time and effort and say that this went on for another 3 years, happening randomly about every 6 months. Finally, there was one account made using my own name. I was so furious and I had completely given up, and a few of my friends had messaged them and told them to delete their account. They then DM'd me, apologized in broken English, and they decided that they were going to turn the account into a fan page. Again, weird. I even got to a point where I was considering calling up the producers of Catfish or something. Literally anything. The fan page was running for probably 3 months, but it seems to me that they have deleted it. I still get weird messages from Russian accounts that seem too similar to the others, but I don't feel as freaked out by it. This whole situation sucks because I was never directly threatened or put in a situation in which I felt like my life was in serious danger, so I couldn't really go to the police. But there were definitely times when I felt like I was being watched too closely for someone who isn't famous or anything near it. I'm not really sure how to end this, because it probably will never end. So, this is my first post. What I'm going to say happened 2 years ago. I was only 10 at the time. Even my parents don't know about what happened, but hanging here and reading other people's stories made me feel the urge to share mine as well. For context, my father, mother, little sister, and me were in Russia, in a very luxurious hostel organized like that. The entrance is a building itself from which you had to take an elevator to access a big park. From this park, you have to walk 3 to 4 minutes to arrive in front of a approximately 30-floor building. It's designed to contain one really big suite per floor. So when taking the lift, you can scan your card, and it will automatically bring you to the floor associated to it. So, the 3rd day of our trip, my parents decided to go on a date together, leaving me and my sister alone in the suite. They had left some cash so that we could order some food, so I ordered it and waited. When somebody finally called to say that it was all ready, I went down to search for the food, and that's when I did my first big mistake. I didn't close the front door, thinking that nobody would come up here, and that I would have a lot of things in my hands, so I wouldn't be able to open it. So I called the lift and I waited. It took way too long. When it was finally here, somebody was in it and I politely said hello, but he didn't answer. He was wearing a red sweatshirt and some Adidas joggers. I pushed the 0 button and the man headed out. The doors were closing when I finally realized my second big mistake. Why the heck did he get out? He shouldn't, since there weren't any other rooms except for my family's on that floor. And that's when I started to panic. I tried to stop the lift, but it wouldn't stop. So as soon as I arrived at the ground floor, I immediately went back up to my room's floor. The front door was wide open, and the absent noise made me feel uncomfortable, assuming that either my sister had been caught or that she was hiding. I went for the second option, because the man was taller than me, which meant that his footsteps must have sounded heavier than mine on the ground, and I believed that my sister's intelligence would figure that out and that she would hide. I finally found her hiding behind one of the sofas crying. She told me that the man was searching in the luggages for valuable items. We played hide and seek with him. The room was really big for almost 30 minutes, and I finally went in my room, and I noticed that my Nintendo Switch had vanished. I called the reception to send some security guys to arrest the man. Luckily, everything went pretty smoothly, and that man turned out to be the son of somebody staying there. One creepy thing that I still think about is that he had a knife on him coming from the kitchen of our suite, showing that he didn't just want to steal some stuff. So, just a warning, this pretext is dark and depressing, and you won't unsee what you read here. If you're in a dark place, skip it. So, poverty breeds extreme measures, especially if the poor decides to mob up, form an echo chamber, that chronically downward spiraling mob mentality. Some might argue that it is where evil could be delivered. In Russia, you see quite sleepy babies with different beggars on the same subway, posing as their kids. They never cry or fuss because they're drugged. They are taken children. You also see grown-up beggars, deformed, missing bits of their legs, arms, eyes, or all of them. In our society, capable adults who can't support themselves are viewed as failures, unworthy of sympathy. Quite a few of them couldn't speak, their tongues missing. Those are the kids that try to tell their stories to strangers. Almost all of them are illiterate, but all of them were taken as children. My story wasn't that bad, not bad at all. It was 1997 and I was 5. My family had taken me on a trip, and as we were walking down a major commercial district, I saw 4 young men walking towards us, side by side, all fashionable and metropolitan looking. It's a busy street in midday, crowded indeed, but it's wide enough for 10 people to walk shoulder to shoulder, so they have no need to walk toward our side of the street. But they did. The place is a shopping district with plenty to see. My dad was walking on the right, my mom in the middle, loosely holding my hand. As men, I've mentioned, were just walking past us, I felt a firm grasp on my left forearm. They kept walking, as if nothing happens. My parents kept scrolling through the shops. I was confused by the situation, but I didn't know what to do. So I squeezed my mom's hand as hard as I could. Didn't even think about making a noise. The tug on my arm grew stronger, and I grabbed her hand harder until she turned and looked at me. The arm of the man slipped away. My mom didn't see a thing, as I still couldn't find the words to describe what happened. Years later, as I was in college, I told her this story. Like I said, it wasn't nearly as bad as many of the things I've heard or seen. But that day, I was that close to being taken and never seen again.